We're going to talk about this episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I only got one thing to say, and is that, Bob, we were rooting for you, Bob. We were all rooting for you. But as usual, in reality show fashion, you messed it up. We'll talk about it. Hey guys, this is Shawn Sandridge. Thank you so much for clicking onto this video. So I am doing the review of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 9, Episode 16, Maui Mayhem. So let's get into it because there was a lot going on this evening. So the episode starts with Kandi being fired up about Portia lying on her about this drugging thing, rightfully so. And they do a clip about Todd saying that he hasn't seen her that mad since the pillow talk incident where she was ready to just whip on somebody. So she was ready for heads to roll in that clip, and she was ready for a head to roll tonight. Phaedra is cool as a cucumber, and you can see that Phaedra and Portia are really kind of made for each other. They seem to have each other's back, and I'm not quite sure what that's all about. And Portia is sitting there unbothered and watching Kandi just spin out into the atmosphere. What I find it funny is that Phaedra was saying that it's not that serious. Why is it not that serious? Because I don't think most people want other people to lie about them, especially something that can be potentially egregious as far as reputation and the perception of somebody's character. I don't know why you could say that that's not serious, but okay. So it's the morning after, and Todd is asking Kandi how is she feeling about, you know, the night before, and she thought that she was going to be calm and cool and just sit there and not be bothered by Portia, but she lost her temper, and she's like, you know what, I need to have a good day. I don't want Portia to go to the speedboat activity that we have planned. So she's on the phone talking to Phaedra, and she's like, listen, I need a break. I need you to tell Portia she needs to just stay back. So Phaedra says she'll relay the message. Phaedra meets up with Portia, and she tells her that, you know, Kandi thinks it's best that you don't come to the, you know, speedboat, and Portia's cool with it. She's like, I could care less. I'd rather have a day out with my man, and we'll fall back and go to do something together. Now, I just want to know, because I did a lot of live tweeting today. If you don't catch me on other social media platforms, check me out on Twitter, because I try to live tweet as much as possible when I'm reviewing. I was live tweeting when Married to Medicine was out, and then I live tweet when I can for The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I was saying to myself, why is it Real Housewives of Atlanta never get really anything glamorous? Now, I'm okay with the speedboat, but Real Housewives of Atlanta is a very long-standing franchise, and they never really seem to get the really great trips. So they're doing the speedboat, and poor Cynthia was looking like a Greek goddess. For what? Because they were whipping in that speedboat like a white raft ride. They getting whipped around and stuff. Like, why can't they just lounge and luxurious like the Beverly Hills housewives? Why can't they have a yacht with all this food, and they're in Maui, and they got a yacht guy just showing them all the wonderful, beautiful waterfalls in Maui? Why can't they just be chilling? No, they got to do this crazy speedboat thing, which was cool. But I would like to see the Atlanta ladies just bask in luxury, and they never seem to do that. It was just something that I noticed, and I tweeted about that. Why can't they just live like the Beverly Hills housewives for a change and be glamorous? So I thought that was funny. So, okay, I didn't want to go to Bob and Sheree because that was pretty dark. So I want to try to skip that for a minute. So what I found odd is that Portia was talking about that she's being bullied. Now, Portia, you are not being bullied. you're being called on your BS. That's two different things. She's saying how, you know, you just can only take so much. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that Phaedra is no one's friend, but it's true that she has Portia's back, and I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Now, what I find really refreshing is that Cynthia and Peter are very cool on this trip. I'm not sure if they got the island fever, but you know, we're just going to say that they are still legally married, and they are probably doing what married couples do. And good on you. Good for you, Cynthia and Peter. One last ride before the whole carnival is shut down, I say. All right, so we're gonna start about Bob and Sheree. So talking about Cynthia and Peter, Bob and Sheree, they're in the van on the way to the speedboat. Now, there's two different cars. You have Candy, Todd, Peter, and Cynthia, and then you have Phaedra and Kenya, and Sheree and Bob. And they were talking about how, you know, Cynthia and Peter are doing really well, and that they're surprised, you know, that they couldn't do it. And so Bob refers to an incident when they were in Las Vegas, and that she was asleep in the car, and he was talking about how it would have been so easy to just undo her seatbelt and hit the brakes and let her fly through the window. Now, that in and of itself is not a bad comment, because they are talking about a time in their lives when they were going through the divorce, and they were both, it was a contentious divorce. That part didn't bother me, because you're just really saying about how you felt about the person during that time. That part didn't bother me. And let's face it, it's very clear they didn't have an amicable divorce. And we know from Sheree being on the Housewives that their relationship has not been good. So for him to say that did not upset me. He was just recounting a feeling he had about Sheree at the time in their lives, which is understandable when you're having a nasty divorce. What the problem lies is that he's not taking into account of what Sheree was feeling at the time. So he says, and this is the thing, what bothered me about the scene, and I'll just go over the scene. So he says, did I hit you? Did I ever hit you? Because he says, I don't ever remember being physical with you. He goes, did I ever hit you? Did I ever slap you? Did I ever choke you? So she's sitting there and she's like, yeah, you did. Because he doesn't seem to remember being abusive towards her. But she does say that, yeah, you choked me. And, and then he said, could you still breathe? Now, this is the time where Phaedra and Kenya are like, I don't believe he just said that out loud. And so Kenya, rightfully so, said, nah, that ain't cool. That's not cool. I'm sorry. That's not cool. He says, well, I'm sorry if I did, because maybe I should have choked you harder. Now, I'm not quite sure where in that he should have ever uttered that. And it comes across that he has no remorse. I'm not liking Bob in this situation, and I tweeted that too. And Sheree, she bursts out in tears. Now, just let's compound all that together. So he makes this comment, Sheree gets upset, and then Phaedra is in the back seat talking to Bob like you would talk to your older brother to tell him to say you're sorry. And he couldn't even do it on his own to realize what I just said was not cool and let me fix it. So he finally apologizes and says, you know, I'm trying to do better, and this is why we're out, you know, to make amends from, you know, past transgressions. Kenya goes and she hugs Sheree, says she's sorry, you know, about what the incident was. But as a viewer, I'm not feeling that Bob is remorseful about anything he's done in his past. That'll come out in a little bit. Portia and Todd, you know, they and incidentally, after that incident, Sheree was over it. She didn't want to be around Bob for the rest of the trip, and now she has to put on a face of that she's going to get along with everybody, or that she's just going to go along. But she really, I think she would have been okay with turning around and going back to the hotel. She was over Bob. She was over the whole situation. But now she has to go and play like she's going to have a good time on the speedboat ride. Portia and Todd, they have a nice day out massaging and everything out on the beach. It was cool. So they meet up later. The guys go out for a nightcap. Phaedra decides to bring up this restoration because she was going to do it back in Atlanta at the church, but she thinks that, you know what, we need to do this now. So I find it funny because she's talking about, you know, healing and all this stuff, and drawing boundaries. Y'all, group of ladies, have never known anything about having boundaries, but okay. I guess no time like the present. So, and I said this, you know, if you want to talk about restoration, Phaedra, why don't you start with your part in this whole thing between Kandi and Portia? Why don't you bring up the fact that you was busy making, you know, comments about Kandi and Shamia being intimate and all that? Why don't you bring that up? Because it's still not brought up. Why don't you bring that up? Why you want to be a restorative person and have everybody restored? Why don't you start with you? You know, why don't you start with the woman in the mirror, Phaedra? Anyway, so they're over at Phaedra's to have this restoration. Kandi is totally uninterested. Sheree is still upset about what has happened between her and Bob and the incident on in the car. Sheree and Kenya start talking about, you know, Sheree feeling some kind of way about these abuse remarks. Kenya's like, you're not understanding me. You made it seem like I provoked Matt. And so, you know, it was squashed, but they both were culpable in those remarks, hitting below the belt. Portia and Kandi. Kandi is like, first, you see me crying, don't let it fool you. I don't care about you, because Portia was like, well, I understand that you were crying whether you thought it was true or not, but I was telling the truth. And Candy's like, I'm going to stop you right there. So it was funny because did you catch that Portia was kind of saying that, yeah, I lied? Because she's like, and Kandi had a good point, you know, she's like, I've supported you more than anybody. And when you were going through all your things, I was trying to be the person. Like, I can't believe we are at this place right now because I have done nothing but be a support to you. And regardless of who you think has your back, I've always had your back from day one. So for me to have extended a hand out to you and been a person to have your back, and you betray me on some hearsay BS, and to take that and run with it and have a run tell that kind of thing, I got a problem with it. So the only thing Portia could say is, well, when you say something about me, I'm just going to hit harder. And whether it's true or not is pretty much irrelevant. So she didn't come out, rightfully so, and say that it wasn't true, that she just made it up, or whoever they told her really isn't a they. She just wanted to get back at Kandi and make something be hurtful. Portia, you are nobody's friend. Nobody's friend. So then it goes into Kandi and Phaedra and talking about Kandi making comments about Phaedra talking to other men. And Candy's like, I didn't say you were talking to other guys. I said you were talking. So Phaedra's all tongue-tied saying like it ain't worth my time. And essentially she kind of admitted that she was talking to somebody, you know, right before Apollo left. But is anybody gonna... Phaedra always tries to come across as this very high, virtuous woman. And I can appreciate that. but I don't think anyone is really going to be upset with you when you had a husband who was cheating on you. I mean, I know that you are still married, but she is so big on these appearances, but yet and still it reveals itself. So why don't you just be honest and say, you know what, Apollo stepped out on the marriage. This marriage is over. Why didn't you just say that? I don't think anyone's going to fault you on that. But anyway, she didn't want to say anything about it. She was all tongue-tied about it. But Kandi did apologize to Phaedra for the comment that she did during the reunion, saying that she thought that Phaedra called the feds on her. And she said that, listen, the reason why I really felt that you called the feds at my house was because of the timing. And I can admit that that was wrong. So that was very big of Kandi. And this restoration was a bust. It was a bust. I mean, they just talked, but nobody got restored. Nobody felt better. You know, it wasn't good. Was the air clear? Somewhat, but it wasn't a restoration that I guess everyone would have thought it should have been. So Bob is at the jewelry store and he's trying to make up for his disastrous comments that he made in the car ride, and he meets with Sheree, and it's very clear, which, you know, Sheree all the way up until now has never really showed a lot of emotion. She is once or twice, but this has really gotten some wounds open, and she is not over the treatment that she got from Bob, and it's very clear. So he's at the jewelry store, and she's like, you know, you can't make this up with jewelry. And, you know, it was just, you thought it was funny, and I just don't feel like you understand what you did to me. And he tried to say that he uses joking as a coping mechanism, and that he does it so he can stop crying. He does it as a laughing way to stop from crying. And the bottom line is that it was completely insensitive. It was bad. And, you know, he still kind of is not really serious about it. And it comes across to Sheree. And Sheree's really not open to hearing him do anything other than to show some remorse and sincerity about it. And she walks out. So I say, Sheree, keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Everybody says they are your ex for a reason, and I don't know if them two being back would be a good thing. And I say, you know, your children are adults, and try to be on good ground for your adult children, because you've got a big future ahead with your children. You know, there's a lot of life that's going to happen with your children, and you want to be able to be in a room with your ex-spouse and share those great moments with the kids, ideally. But rekindling a romantic thing, I don't know. I don't see it happening. I don't see it. And I tweeted, I don't like you, Bob. I don't like you. So I don't know. Maybe they're gonna try and keep doing it. If she was my best friend, I'd be like, girl, just walk away. He revealed a lot, and I would leave it alone. Just remain friends and keep it light, but don't try to open your heart. That really left a really bad taste in my mouth about Bob. So that is all I have for now. If I forgot anything of value, please put them in the comments. Remember, you can find me on other social media platforms. You can check me out on IG, and you can check me out on Periscope, and you can check me out on Twitter. Same name, keeping it simple. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. And on a side note, did you catch the fact that when Bob was sitting there with the guys, he was peeping some girl at the end of the bar counter? How many of you guys really believe this thing between Sheree and Bob is real? I mean, I know there's a lot of us that want to see love get rekindled. But after the comment Bob made, and he's peeping some chick when he's supposed to be rekindling something with Sheree, are we to just ride with this like a love and hip-hop storyline, fake as I don't know what? Just something to think about. Talk to you soon. Bye.